So what we have now, we have A is plotted along this domain of time, okay? So A is not, there is no single way or no single equation to represent A. So this is an erratic motion, okay? And then what is given in the question is just A versus T. That's all what is given in the question, okay? So what we need to do now is to plot V versus T. To plot V versus T, and you have A versus T, so you just get the integral of A versus T. For this part, you get the integral for this part, okay? And you plot V versus T. Once you get the integral, you're going to get what? You're going to get V is equal to what? 10T, okay? V is equal to 10 times T, okay? So now if I consider that time is, sorry, the 10, V is equal, okay. So if I want to plot V, I need to know the domain of time, which is from 0 to 10. So if I plug in 0, 0 times 10 would be equal to V is equal to 0, right? V is equal to 0. How about if I plug in 10? Okay, I consider 10 to belongs to this domain, okay, to this equation, sorry. So if this equation and 10 is applicable to this equation, plug in 10 and get 100. So from 0 to 100, one jump. Can I get the slope of this? Can I get the slope of this graph? Yes, I can get the slope. The slope is you have many ways, in fact, but graphically is the opposite over the one which is adjacent. Okay, this one, this is the opposite. Okay, you have 100 over 10, which means 10 over 1. This would be the slope. So we know the slope. Okay, because sometimes I may ask for the angle for this angle, so you can get the slope. If you can get the slope, you can get the angle. The angle would be equal to tan inverse the slope. Tan inverse the slope. Okay. So we have plotted this line. Okay, we have plotted this line. This is the line that we have plotted.
Slope here na bito acceleration ka.
Sorry.
أو slope كأتو ببينيو هر acceleration كنني هر لسرت أيدا يا. وستم.
Slope كشون أيدا زينو acceleration شيلي أكيد.
أتوانين أو يبكين. نعم بستم. استعدت قوتت بدلتا واي بسر دلتا إكس بالمونيا.
بالي واي.
يعني الصد بسر ده. هر أبيتو ده يعني أبيتو acceleration.
بالي.
زمان اسمه.
شون يعني شوازك ديكت هي بودوزينوي سلوبكا؟
ما بس ما يستا سلوبكا بخو سلوب يعني 11 ونيا
سلوب يعني هنا كي تاني أو أنجلا.
ايوه ما بس يعني أتواني استأتوها كشيء كم دوستا في اكسانه ب دتي.
اوكي. اوكي.
هرلوي داتا فرايور بقريه بتسلوب.
تشيب كي
داتا شرايلور بقري ديريفاتيف يعني بيكيو acceleration.
يعني you get the differentiation of V over T.
بله في اكسانه بديتي او ديريفاتيف لور بقري داتا 10.
يعني دالي the slope is equal to 10 يعني is equal to the acceleration which is constant وانيا
بله
كواوا راسته أوش راسته منوتم you have many ways to determine the slope of this graph. Either you say that one of the ways you say that the slope is equal to the acceleration, hence the acceleration is constant, so the slope is constant all the way from here to here, it doesn't change, which is okay. Rasta, غلطني. Why?
Okay.
Okay. So now what is left is that we need to plot the second part of A, because it's not represented by a single equation. We have one equation, A is equal to 10. The other equation, A is equal to -2. So how I'm gonna plot the second part of V sub t? I need to get the integral, right? I need to get the integral. So I apply the same concept. I get the integral, right? From 10 to what is not given is the time needed for the car to stop. Okay, the time needed for the car to stop, that means I have, if you look at this, the time is not given. So I have time from 10 to, I don't know, to t, we call it t because we don't know what is the time needed for the car to stop. So what I know is the velocity at this point. I know it. Okay, I can get the velocity at this point, which is equal to, velocity is equal to what? I plug in 10 over here. I'm going to get V is equal to 100, right? So I know the velocity. And I know the velocity at this point, which is equal to what? To 0. Because the car is decelerating, right? It's decelerating up to, until the velocity goes to 0. And once the velocity is equal to 0, I can get the time. So in the differential, when you get the integration, you have the boundary condition for the velocity, which is 100, and V, the second one, is 0. What I don't have is the boundary condition, one of the boundary condition for the time. I have the initial time, but I don't have the final time needed for the car to stop. So that is how I'm gonna get t, the time needed for the car to stop. So once I get the integral of this side, the integral of the other side, I'm gonna end up with an equation, and that equation I plug in the initial condition for the velocity, initial condition for the time, final condition for the velocity, but I don't have a final condition for the time. So that would be my only unknown in the equation. If I have one unknown and one equation, can I solve it? Can I solve an equation with one unknown? Yes, I can solve that equation. So what is unknown is t. So I'm gonna end up with t, which would be equal to 60 seconds. Yeah.
موسى velocity kelire bukra 0.
Velocity chunka la presiarka utiati acceleration ليروا بوتا ناقص دو. تو سياركا ريكورد at rest 0 بو هات إيرا جيشتاس كان ديرا بو بصد سرعتي وانيا ديرا صدا. The car is decelerating constantly at a constant rate, يعني deceleration أكي -2 all the way until it reaches 0. قوي وادلا لبرسياركا باسياركا. Okay, so the car is decelerating. So what the question is asking us, determine the time needed for the car to stop. Give me the time needed for the car to stop. So I know the final velocity, which is 0. And I know the initial velocity, which is 100 for this part, okay, for this part. So I'm going to get what? T prime, or T, the second T. I mean the final T. The T at which the car stops, comes into complete, would halt, okay? Stop completely, okay? The car stops completely when the time is equal to 60 seconds. How did I get this T prime? Okay, which is T, the second, this one. The second boundary condition that we don't know. We know that the first boundary condition, which is 10, the second one we don't know. So we're gonna get T. So this T is labeled as T prime, and this is the time at which velocity would be equal to 0. Okay? Okay or not?
موسى
Bale.
عفوا بس أوسط بستيتي نجيش تملتيو هات أوي هاو كيشكي
Sadu beast?
أوي هاو كيشي سالب دو تي بلس سطو بيست
راسك كمان مستعمل شو زاني دبي صدبك أو دي لتشندري أو بيستي لتشندري هنا أو هاو كيشي خواري
يقدر أما
بالله
هين هي you get the integral of both sides اما ابيته v او صدى او via اوش t يكي كنا ديا okay do t times 40 and this t would be equal to t. We get the integral 120 as a value. Okay.
يعني بالضبط ما مختلفات يا
يكا مقبلة
يعني بالضبط چونکە یەکەم زاتەوە کاری وەرەگری ئەکاتە سالب دووتی دوایەکە ئەتوو ئەو سنوورەیدا ئەنێوە
our bista times amatia times 2 أبيتا 20 أو صد أي بيتا أو ديو أبيتا صد زائدا سوري صد ناقصا 20 أبيتا صوبيست واي أنا يعني أو تواو كان حلي بكن بدست إنجازان أو صدو بيست لك هاتو أو بتشاوا سير المكان حلي بكن دزانن once you solve the integration then you will know where this 120 comes from the resulty boundary condition كان when you plug in إسا انتجرال كيتشيا أبيتا في boundary condition هي لصد أو بو في يعني أبيتا شي أبيتا في ناقص صد وانيا أملاش أبيتا أما أبيتا ناقص 2 يعني negative 2 times t plug in ده أبيتا negative 20 okay أو تي أو sorry negative plus أبيتا plus 20 أوش negative أي بيتا أو لا أبيتا positive أو صدا positive أم بيستا negative sorry positive ده بيتا كويا كيتو أبيتا صوبيس يعني أبي حلي بكيبوي بزاين أو صوبيس تلك بياتو okay
تاو تيجيشن
okay so once you get that you're gonna get the time needed for the car to come into a complete halt يعني to stop completely okay that is what the question is asking for that's all what we need to know no the time sorry how far the car has traveled so if we want that means we need to plot s versus t so now we plot s versus t what we do is we have two things to get the integral for v is change of I mean, v definition of v is equal to change of position with respect to time. So you need to get the integral. For this one, you need to get the integral as well. So you have the boundary conditions? Yes. You have the boundary conditions for this one? Yes. So you will get the distance, and let us check the graph. Where's this? This is the graph for the distance. So the initial value, you plug in 0. The final value for the s, you're going to get 500. The final value for this graph from the second integral, you're going to get 3,000. Okay? So that would be the total distance. Yeah, once you plot this graph, you will know the total distance would be equal to 3,000. Okay? The total distance the car has traveled is 3,000. The total distance the car has traveled at this acceleration, at this velocity, at this acceleration, where's the acceleration, of course? Okay, if I ask you such a question, how much the car has traveled when the acceleration was equal to 10. So you could say, you go down to the graph and show me. Okay, you tell me that the car has traveled 500 meter when the acceleration was equal to 10. And the car has traveled 3,000 minus 500 is 2,500. The distance was for the car to travel when the acceleration was equal to -2. When the acceleration, that means the car started to decelerate at this point. At this point, when the car has moved 500 meters and afterwards the car started to decelerate for 2,500 meter until it has come into a complete stop. Okay? يعني دتواني distance بسيارك وعليه بكم determine the distance at which the car has accelerated for when a was equal to 10 and determine the distance the car has moved or traveled when the acceleration was equal to -2. Okay? So I could change the question into a question like this. So not necessarily to be the total distance. Okay, you have any question with this question? Do you have any question? No? Shall we move to the second or third question? Okay, if you have no question, we move into the third question. We have this question. Now we have let us check what do we have. The VS graph describing the motion of a motorcycle is shown in this figure. Construct the AS graph of the motion and determine the time needed for the motorcycle to reach the position S is equal to 160. So VS is given. VS, V versus S. So now V is a function of position. This graph is given to you. What the question is asking you, construct AS and determine the time needed for the motorcycle, this is a motorcycle, okay, to reach the position of 160. So determine the time. What is the time? How long, how much of time do I need, or do the motorbike needs to, or motorcycle needs to reach this distance? So we have velocity versus S. It's not V sub, it's not V versus T, it's V versus position. So velocity is a function of time. If you remember, we have this relationship. If you still remember, V dV is equal to V dV. V dV is equal to what? ADS, right? So this is the relation. This is the relationship between the two, between V and A, when they are a function of S. When they are a function of S, okay? Right? This is the relationship, okay? So if I have what? If I have velocity as a function of S, how I'm gonna get out of this relationship I just now written, how I'm gonna get A? So this is what you're gonna get, or this is what you're gonna do. A equated to V times dV over ds. Okay, V times dV over ds. I can plot A through using this equation. Okay, so what I need now is to differentiate V. I have how many equations over here? I have 1, 2. This is an erratic motion. It's not continuous. So 2 equations I have, right? One is this, the other one is this. Okay, for this domain, when S is equal to 0 to 80, right? 0 to 80, I can make use of this equation, okay? So dV by ds, can I get the differentiation or differentiate this equation with respect to S? Yes. Yes, I can differentiate it. Can we? Yes, this is how we're gonna differentiate. And V is what? V as a function of S is equal to 0.2 S plus 4. Yes, 0.2 S plus 4. Okay, so this times this, okay, right? So for this domain, which is, for this domain from 0 to 80, I will get equal, A is equal to 0.04 S plus 0.8 or 0.8. You differentiate this with respect to S. If you differentiate this side with respect to S, what you're gonna get? 0.2. So 0.2 times this side, you're gonna get 0.04 S added to 0.8. Okay, because 4 times 0.2 would be equal to 0.8. So this is my equation. This is my equation with which I could plot A within this domain. This is the equation. So this is my A that I could plot A for this domain. The domain is represented by the position, not time, because A versus S, not A versus T. Okay. So once I get, once I can plot A versus, once I can plot it, this is how I'm gonna plot. I plug in 0 into this equation. when s is equal to 0. What I'm going to get? 8. So the plot would start from 8, not from 0. Why? Because I plug in 0 into s, I'm going to get a is equal to 0.8. So how about when you plot, when you plug in 80? You plug in 80, and then you're going to get a value, which is equal to 4. You plug in here, you plug in 80 times 0.04, added to 0.8, you will get 4. So you get this line with this inclination, okay, with this slope, okay? So once you have this line, to construct the other part of the acceleration, what you need, you have the same, you could use the same, make use of the same relationship, which is a VdV is equal to AdS, right? VdV, this is VdV, V times dV equal to A times ds, right? This is the relationship that I have. So A is equal to V times dV over ds. If V is equal to 20 and I get the differentiation of V with respect to S times V, so that means 20 times the differentiation of 20 with respect to S. What would it be for 20 if I differentiated with respect to S? How much would it be, V? How much?
0.
Yeah. So 0 times V, which is equal to 20, would be equal to what? To 0. So I will have A for this domain, which is 80 to 60, would be equal to 0, right? Okay.
Okay, it's clear.
Yeah. What else is left? Determine the time needed for the motorcycle to reach 160. So how long for the vehicle or for this motorcycle, how much time does it need or does it take to reach its final destination? Its final position. This is the position. How can I calculate the time? Is there any way to calculate the time? Can we calculate the time? How can we calculate the time? Now we know we have relationship between V and S and A and S. We can plot from V, we can get out of out of V versus S, we can plot A versus S. So now I want to determine the time for the motorbike to reach its final position. How can I calculate this time? What I need to do? What I need to do to get the final time? Final time. Is there any way? Yes, Shajin. Well,
ئەمستا بەخۆی یاسایە کە ئەڵێتن لۆ دۆزینەوەی V داتاشراوەی S بەپەی T وەرئەگرین.
Okay.
لێرانە لۆ ئەوەی T ببینینەوە شوێنی V لەگەڵ DT ئەڵوو گۆڕ ئەەکەین ئەڵێن DT یەکسانە بە DS بەسەر V.
Yeah.
ئەو کاتی لۆ ئەوەی T ببینینەوە بەخۆی DT هەیە پێویستە تەواوکاری لۆ وەربگرین. تەواوکاری بەعامەتی لۆ هاوکێشەکەی وەرەگرین نەتوانین T ببینینەوە.
Okay, so we get this. This is D. Where does this come from? I don't understand this. DT is equal to DS over V. What is this?
مامۆستا کاتێک کە گرافەکەن هەیە لە V لۆ T.
DT is equal to velocity. This is the definition. Yeah, I understand this definition. Okay. Okay. So now I need to get the time. I have ds over v. Okay, what is v? I have a function of v as a function of s, of course, and ds is the position, right? So ds over the function of v, v as a function of s, I have it, which is this one. So to determine the time, I could determine the time for this equation only, for this equation. So once I plug in 0, And then I'm gonna get the time, which is equal to, let us check, what is the time? 8.04. So is this the time needed for the car to travel the distance from here to here? Is this Amaya time, 8.047?
أو بس بو بشي يكما أستاذ.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, best bobeshi yakama. So how I'm gonna get for the second part?
همان كدارة كده دوباره كينا وربطني تاوكاري بو
Exactly.
بشي.
So once you get the second part, you add the time you've got from the first with the second part. All together is the time needed for the motorcycle to travel from 0 to 160. Okay? Yeah, that's it. Okay? Any question? Do we have any question? If not, we proceed to. Yep.
أستاذ قرصترين فكرة كان أو في السيارة أنا أجر بدأ مع يعني في السيارة كان قرصترين فكرة كان يعني أجيبونه من أجري هاي امتحان بيني ويانا أو أنا أجر بدأ ما ربنا كسب بدأ.
Assignment. I'll give you assignment. You check regularly on LMS and check for the assignment. Ditan assignment TP diwana.
بله ميدي.
Yeah, so I will also give you some new assignments for this topic. Okay?
تمام.
Idea Zora, Afkar Zora, yani Awanyabule is unlimited, infinity of questions. So I give those that I think they are critical and you could get out of those questions or assignments, you can get the idea. Yakshti kabash bubas kra ista, basi assignment kra. Don't copy or don't copy and paste because I'm not gonna check if the answer is true or not. I just want you to train yourself. This is a training. What really tests you is the quizzes and the exams. Okay, quizzes and exams are the real test for you. Okay, copy and paste. I don't rely on what you do in your assignment. Assignment is for you to get an idea about the questions and what type of questions you can face and so forth. Okay, but you will not have enough time to solve 100 questions. One, yeah. So I choose those questions that through which you can train yourself and get the idea on what type of questions you might face. Okay. Is it clear? Okay, shall we take the attendance if no questions?